Welcome to a series of videos revolving around my travels throughout the vast country of Japan. In my 2 months here, I want to share some of the local finds that made my trip so memorable, the transportation I used to travel seamlessly, and just the overall experience of being immersed in the land of the rising sun. My travels began after landing in Osaka, the economic and cultural hub of the Kansai region. This was my first impression of city life in Japan, and I was blown away by how clean, modern, and deeply rooted to street food this city is. Many of the districts here just draw you in through impressive displays of traditional Japanese izakayas and full-blown nostalgia. I genuinely felt like a kid just wandering through all the little alleyways and admiring every little alluring detail in storefronts and arcades. I recommend purchasing this Kansai area through pass in advance, which I picked up at the Osaka JR station. This pass allows for unlimited rides on virtually all public transport, excluding rail lines and taxis, for 3 non-consecutive days when touring the 4 main cities. For instance, with this pass, I was able to visit the Osaka Castle, which was built in the 16th century and is a staple of the city. It's beautiful, resilient, and quite frankly, a reflection of Japanese defensive architecture all throughout. The Dotonbori district, which is split along a canal, is probably the most vibrant part of Osaka. Lined with restaurants, shops, and extravagant signs, it really comes alive in the evening hours as everything turns into a visual spectacle. There's just an overwhelming amount of street food and hilarious storefront mascots that make you crave all types of Japanese food. I really like seeing all the different styles of restaurants and izakayas that clearly have their own persona. Some might call this place a tourist trap, but I liked the laid-back vibes and friendly nature of the locals. For a quieter setting, I visited Sumiyoshi Taisha. It's one of Japan's oldest Shinto shrines, and here you'll find a unique blend of natural beauty and traditional architecture. It's a place to seek blessings and prosperity, and I was also fortunate to see a time-honored traditional wedding taking place. Definitely a location I recommend in Osaka, and one that opened my eyes to Shintoism. I decided I would do a quick day trip west of Osaka to the small but iconic coastal city of Kobe. The name alone, Kobe, is particularly synonymous with Japan's premium beef, known for unparalleled quality that only comes from this prefecture. I went around the city in search of this particular cut of meat, bypassing most of the street vendors that try and sway you into buying a false kind of beef. There are certain parameters that come with properly buying Kobe beef, specifically the quality and marbling score of the meat. I eventually found a small space that served A4 Kobe beef and ordered around 150 grams worth. The taste and texture was second to none, and even though the price may seem high, it's cheaper than if you buy elsewhere in Japan, and the experience alone is worth it. In the end, I was happy to have tried Kobe Wagyu beef at the source and totally recommend it as an experience worth doing when in Japan. From Osaka, it was time to head east. And after my first official bowl of shoyu ramen, I reached the town of Nara, Japan's first permanent capital. The obvious residents here are the deer. They roam freely throughout Nara Park and are regarded as a symbol of grace and serenity in Japanese culture. They're believed to be messengers of gods in Shinto belief, so naturally, these deer are highly cherished and protected. You can buy these crackers called Shinkansen for around 200 yen, and usually a crowd of deer will gather around you, and some might nudge you over and over and eventually bow. You feel the connection just walking through the park, and there's definitely something spiritual with these unique animals in relation to humans. A quick summit on a nearby mountain leads to some amazing views of the region and, well, you guessed it, more deer. Some of my best memories here evolved from discovering Nara through a slower pace and enjoying Japan's quieter life outside the busy city. A place I'll never forget and a unique place to discover in Kansai. Kyoto rounds out traveling throughout the Kansai region, the bread and butter of Japanese heritage. This city pulls you in and captivates every sense of what I envisioned Japan to be like. Traditional and modern, it's truly a one-of-a-kind city. My simple guest house was located in the center north part of the city, very comfortable by dorm standards, and was in close proximity to most bus lines that can reach most parts of Kyoto. Getting around is pretty straightforward and efficient, but for some reason, you need exact change for the fare. I didn't have a Suica card at the time, so I mostly relied on my trusty yen coins. The buses could also get packed during peak season, so best to plan ahead. Kyoto has been going through a tourism super boom this past year. It wasn't as packed as the summer months prior, but I could definitely feel the effects of over-tourism at the heritage sites, as well as the people that live in Kyoto. It's hard to resist the allure of Kyoto, and I also notice more commercial brands moving in. Purely speaking, there's so much to admire and take in visually that you can forget about the crowds and immerse yourself. My advice is to also see some less frequented areas around the foothills of Kyoto. You can really feel the cultural richness and tranquility in some of these places, and I think it's best to slow down, put down the phone for a minute, and enjoy Kyoto for its true self. There is definitely a magic that lives and breathes here. It's totally worth getting up as early as you can. Take a journey through Arashiyama, get lost, find a tea house, get lost again, and let your mind wander. One of my favorite locations in Kyoto was the Fushimi Inari Shrine, made famous for its thousands of torii gates winding through the forested hillsides. Kind of a spiritual journey walking through these corridors, and as I made my way up, the crowds began to thin out. As you ascend the path, surrounded by forest and stone fox statues, which guard the way, you almost begin to feel a peaceful clearing of the mind and a feeling of spiritual fulfillment. At the summit, roughly 12,000 steps later, is where I felt most at peace. The pure feeling of accomplishment and unique mysticism is what made this so unforgettable for me. I recommend coming in the later hours to really experience the magic here. Overall, Kyoto, as popular as it has become, has that it factor. Take your time discovering and respecting all it has to offer. So this sums up my journey through the Kansai region of Japan. Truly a feast for the eyes, the heart, the mind, and the soul. I then made my way to Kyoto Station. For my next video, I travel northeast to spectacular Kanazawa and Takayama. I also break down and explain how to use the JR Pass, navigate the rail system, reserve seats, and make your visit a truly special one. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to follow the journey. See you next time. After bouncing around Kyoto and Osaka and getting acquainted with Japanese culture and savory cuisine options, I traveled northeast to the Ishikawa Prefecture and its incredibly preserved historical districts. Kyoto Station is a huge and frankly eye-catching transportation hub connecting various trains, local subways, and bullet train lines. It's busy most days, but it's surprisingly easy to navigate for first-timers. Before catching my train, I needed to pick up my JR Pass from the main office. I purchased the JR Pass from Klook about a week before arriving to Japan. It comes in the mail to your address as a document you will need to exchange for the physical copy of the pass. I bought my JR Pass for 21 consecutive days to travel throughout Japan. The cost was just over 60,000 yen, and I placed my order just before the price increase that went into effect on October 1st. Since the price hike, individual tickets suddenly seem more appealing than paying full price for the JR Pass. There is a link I'll leave in the description of this video, which can help you decide whether to buy the JR Pass versus individual tickets and vice versa. Japan practically runs on rail. It's easily the most efficient, punctual, and streamlined experience I've had in all my travels. Besides the basic premise of going from point A to point B, the JR Pass also includes the bullet trains, known as Shinkansen. These stylish, insanely fast trains are just amazing. They connect major cities all across Japan, come in a variety of colors, and offer a truly comfortable ride, similar to an airplane taking off. You can buy bento boxes at the station to consume on the train, so be sure to reserve a seat for the best possible experience. I'll quickly show a quick crash course on how to reserve a seat using the green machine at the station. Touch Japan Rail Pass on the bottom left, and then select Train to use now and number of passengers. Scan the QR code on the JR Pass, input your passport number, followed by spelling out your desired departure station, your arrival station, and the date and approximate time for your departure. A quick search will give you some options. Select the one you're most comfortable with, and then the seat reservation menu will open. Hit the button with the green circle for each leg of the journey, and then you can either manually select your seat or let the system reserve one automatically. I prefer to do my own and choose a car that is least occupied. After all is said and done, the seat tickets will print out. Don't forget to take your JR Pass as well, and then head to the track where your train will be arriving on time. Back at Kyoto Station, I hopped on the Thunderbird to take me across the varied landscape of Middle Japan. The line stems from Kyoto to Kanazawa, and the entire trip took just over 2 hours. Kanazawa Station was voted one of the most beautiful train stations in the world. The city itself is chill, with a mix of modern infrastructure, and old world charm. I only had one day here, so I walked over to the Higashichaya district, which was once an entertainment district filled with tea houses and geishas. It's exceptionally preserved and authentic, making each little alleyway fun to explore. The smell of tea, cedar, and local eateries is something special, and I really felt like I stepped into a bygone era in this district. You'll find a lot of classic homes still standing in Kanazawa, so naturally I chose a 140-year-old home to serve as my guest house. A former kimono shop located next to a small canal and felt like home right from the get-go. Really recommended if staying in Kanazawa, and I even learned how to create origami cranes. Write a wish on the small paper, make the crane, and add to a large collection to be incinerated at the end of the year for good fortune. This was also a city where I tried bullet train sushi. Order from a menu, the train arrives carrying your order, hit the button to send it back, rinse and repeat. It's not to be confused with conveyor belt sushi, from which you can just pick and choose pre-made individual plates. The empty plates are tallied up at the end for payment, and it's a great idea if you want a quick sushi fix. The next day, I took another bullet train for a short ride heading east to the sister city of Toyama. I actually like this city. It's kind of an old school and has a fun little college vibe going for it. It was also where I was first introduced to the traditional Japanese instrument called a shamisen. The train ride to Takayama from Toyama is quite beautiful, with a river winding its way underneath the train tracks all the way into town. Takayama is known for its preserved old town called Sanmachi, dating all the way back to the Edo period. It's lined with traditional wooden merchant homes, sake breweries, craft shops, and cafes. I was told to try the Hita beef while in Takayama. Similar to Kobe beef, it's renowned for its exceptional quality and taste. I got it sashimi style on a rice cracker. But overall, wasn't really blown away by it. Give it like a solid 7 out of 10. The main drag can be crowded, but once you cross the road, there are more merchant stores and old-timey shops with a few hits of random nostalgia. An old wooden shrine in the forest is also a nice touch, with a lot of intricate details and a glimpse into a bygone era. There's just so much art, ancient calligraphy, and impressive woodworking to be found in this unique region. The attention to detail is quite impressive. If I had to choose, I'd pick Takayama as a nice day trip if you're looking to experience Japan from its early days and admire the dedication the locals have into preserving such a historic region. So this wraps up my travels in the Ishikawa Prefecture, a region that truly transports you back in time of ancient Japan. In my next video, I travel to the Central Alps near Nagano to explore the high country and take in the bright colors of fall. If you like this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow my journey throughout Japan. See you next time. Wrapping up my time in Japan's Kanazawa and Takayama historical districts, I hopped on the Japan Rail once again to travel through the Central Alps of Nagano towards beautiful Kamikochi. My home base was Matsumoto, a medium-sized city known for its thriving art scene, museums, and surrounding mountains. It's home to Japan's oldest surviving castle, nicknamed the Crow Castle due to its dark exterior. It has quite a long, tumultuous history and is easily one of the most photographed structures in the region. I wanted to explore a few smaller towns in the mountains, so I took another train heading 2 hours southwest to the historic feudal town of Nakatsugawa. Similar to Takayama, it has its old streets and traditional buildings, but felt much more toned down when it comes to attractions. I was also one of the few people exploring this less visited town. I will say that Nakatsugawa does not shy away from confectionery. There's so much candy being sold, it made my head spin. There's definitely a good mix of outdoor activities to be found outside the city, but lightning and heavy fog made me change my plans. Which I didn't mind, since this was just a day trip, and overall, I do recommend stopping by this quaint little town if you're passing through the area. The following day, after the storm had passed, I made the early morning trip up to the incredible Kamikochi Highlands, just west of Matsumoto. To get there, you have to board this colorful train from Matsumoto Station and head to Shimashima Station. From there, buy a separate bus ticket, which might feel a little cramped, but takes you on a scenic 1-hour ride through alpine lakes and valleys to the start of the hike in Kamikochi. And what a way to get started. A cascading river reflects some of the early colors of fall of the foothills, and out in the distance is where one of the tallest mountains in Japan is waiting.
The smell here is just immaculate. It smells so perfect here. I can't describe it. It smells like cedar and just a very, very fresh kind of mountain air.
The trek out is mostly flat, with plenty of viewpoints and stops to take in the sights and sounds. It's suitable for all fitness levels and easy to navigate. There are supposed bears in the region, with a few so-called bear bells put out to alert any in the area. It's a wild area after all, but I was a little disappointed I didn't get to spot any wildlife. There's a reason Kamikochi is sometimes referred to as the Japanese Yosemite Valley. The views of granite mountains and emerald-colored rivers are absolutely breathtaking. Each step is worth its weight, and you really get an overwhelming sense of pure revitalization. Kamikochi is only open from late April till about mid-November, and as the seasons shift, I truly recommend visiting this unique place several times a year. It was one of the places that stood out to me during my time in Japan, and I look forward to returning once again to be able to camp out under the stars of this captivating mountainous region. Sadly, it was time to move on, and hop on the train to continue to my next destination. For my next installment, I visit one of the most sacred and symbolic regions in all of Japan. Can you guess what it is? Mount Fuji will be the main focal point, and I am looking forward to showing all the insanely scenic spots to explore around the mountain. After getting my much-needed dose of alpine trekking and a proper introduction to fall, I flexed the JR Pass once again to travel southbound towards Japan's iconic Mount Fuji-san. The first stop in this new prefecture was Fujinomiya. This is a gateway city for those eager to summit Mount Fuji during the climbing season. The town is southwest of the main mountain and is also home to the Mount Fuji Heritage Museum, seen here as an inverted mountain. Fujinomiya holds several festivals and events throughout the year, so I got to see some students prepare during my stopover. There are no train lines encircling the western half of Fuji, only the local bus service which comes about every hour or so. I departed Fujinomiya after one day to circle around the mountain and explore some waterfalls and forests along the way. There's only one road in each direction, so it's hard to get lost. After about 45 minutes of travel time, I reached Shiraido Falls. It's well maintained with walking paths and platforms for both views of the falls as well as Mount Fuji in the distance. The waterfalls converge into a beautiful curtain of water, and it's a fantastic spot for photographers. In perfect weather conditions, you might also be able to spot some colorful rainbows in the mist. There's even a secondary waterfall close by, which you can't really get down to, but it still provides a worthwhile snapshot of Japan's beautiful scenery. I found a little path to the side that no one seemed interested in taking. I decided to give it a chance, and after about 20 minutes of walking uphill, came across a rose garden on a hill providing excellent views of Mount Fuji. This was probably my favorite spot to randomly discover, and was able to snap some great photos with other photographers.
This is one of the best areas that I've been to so far. Little rose garden overlooking the beautiful Mount Fuji. And all the colors here are just spectacular. Too many bugs though.
In true Japanese fashion, the bus came within a minute of its expected pickup time, and I carried on to my next city in the region.
Alright, so we arrived to Fuji Yoshida. It's kind of like the north town here across Mount Fuji. A lot more places to go and eat, and a lot more hotels and onsen, stuff like that.
On top of that, there's quite a bit of forest on the outskirts, and I went to visit a local Shinto shrine before sundown. I've been to a lot of temples and shrines throughout my travels, but walking into this one felt different. Maybe it's the aura of a temple in a thick forest, or the old, elaborate structures reaching as high as the trees, but I felt a positive vibe just by simply walking around the shrine. Undoubtedly, this became my most favorite shrine in Japan. The sun began to set, and the bells began to ring all around the city at 5 p.m. I got back to my guest house to get prepared for an early start to one of the region's most breathtaking sights of Mount Fuji.
It's about 5:30 in the morning right now. I'm trying to catch the sunrise. It's supposed to be one of the most beautiful views here in all of Mount Fuji. That is a view. I'm already out of breath, but I still have another set of stairs to go up to the pagoda here.
And it's roughly 400 stone steps to reach the hill overlooking the pagoda. The panoramic view from the pagoda's vantage point during sunrise is just so captivating. It's a postcard-worthy scene any way you look at it, and gets even better as the sun starts to shine onto Mount Fuji. No amount of photos can really pull you in as much as just being present here. It's a feeling that's tough to put into words, and like I mentioned before, you really begin to appreciate the magnitude of how sacred this place in Japan really is. A short walk further south lies a classic street that frames the mountain perfectly. People take this opportunity for photos, to walk along the crosswalk, but the local government has since started to crack down on this. Please watch for crossing cars and respect the local traffic laws. The rail line near Mount Fuji is privately owned, so the JR Pass does not work for tickets to ride. There's only about 3 stops in total, and they have these adorable Thomas the Tank Engine inspired trains to get you from point A to point B. Taxis are also strangely in small numbers here. Lake Kawaguchi is probably the most talked about and most visited by locals and tourists. It's the second largest of the 5 lakes around Mount Fuji. During clear weather, the mountain is reflected in the waters, and these red kochia plants really pop during the fall season. As you might expect, lots of photographers are drawn to the region for the perfect shot of this iconic peak. October is a great time to visit this region, as well as during spring, when cherry blossoms adorn the lake's surroundings with hues of pink and white. I mean, overall, Lake Kawaguchi offers not only natural beauty, but also various activities and experiences that make it such a sought-after destination. I'll definitely be returning to this area sometime again in the near future, as it really captivates you as you step off the train. A truly breathtaking city that still preserves its authenticity and character to this day. After a couple days, I bid farewell to this magnificent region and finally tried out the slick, futuristic express train to travel towards the bustling metropolis of Tokyo, Japan. In the next video, I'm going to try and showcase in detail the bustling and frankly eye-opening world of the biggest metropolis in the world, Tokyo. I'll visit various districts, try some of the local food, explain the transportation system, and so on. If you enjoyed this video and are interested in seeing more, please don't forget to show some love and subscribe for future content I will be releasing. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Tokyo is the heartbeat capital of Japan. It's the most populated metropolis in the world, with over 40 million residents and a vast urban sprawl powered by innovative technology, diverse neighborhoods, incredible cuisine, and flashy nightlife. Tokyo has one of the most efficient and extensive public transportation systems I've ever experienced. It's incredibly punctual and clean, with one of the most complex and intimidating subway systems as well. I mean, just look at it. But after a couple runs, you get acclimated to it quickly. Since most people utilize the train system, it can get really busy in some stations. It's a true sight to behold, as the chaos to catch and fit on the train is so orderly and everyone respects each other's space. There are helpful, color-coded signs on the floor to help guide you to where you need to board, and I found them to be extremely useful, more than my phone. Taxis are also widely available, and while they're not cheap, I do recommend taking one just for the sheer experience of comfort and reliability. One of the coolest trains I've found in the region is actually in Chiba, a smaller city just southeast of Tokyo. It's basically an elevated track that runs throughout the city as a monorail, but what sets it apart is the overall design. At first glance, it almost looks like the train tracks have been inverted and the train cars hang upside down. It's a scene right out of the movie Inception, watching this go by while minimizing interference with ground level traffic and being incredibly quiet at the same time. Of course, I had to experience this for myself and hopped on board this unique monorail. Once you get moving, it definitely begins to feel like you're casually flying above everyone else. The train does pivot and sway on turns, but by Japanese standards, it's entirely safe and worthwhile to ride on if you're ever in Chiba. Tokyo has a vast variety of different districts, and for all intensive purposes of this video, I'll explore the ones I found to be the most interesting to travelers. I'll start with Shinjuku, arguably the most popular and dynamic sector in all of Tokyo. It's essentially a wild entertainment district lined with neon-lit streets, a bunch of restaurants, and vibrant signs advertising bars and nightclubs. Just by walking around, I met plenty of unique characters and aspiring street performers. This was also my first introduction to experiencing capsule hotels in Japan. I ended up booking several nights near the epicenter of Shinjuku and learned all the pluses and minuses of the capsule life. It's basically a hive with individual pods stacked one on top of the other, with around 40 in total. Similar to bunk-style hostels, you get a small locker, and sound insulation is limited, making it a toss-up of whether or not you get a good night's rest. I had no real issues, but I'm curious to know other people's experience if you've stayed. Comment below and let me know how it went. Away from the bright neon lights of Shinjuku's main sector lies a small, nostalgic, and atmospheric alleyway. It loosely translates to Memory Alley, offering a glimpse into Tokyo's past during the 1940s. Walking around, you'll notice several tightly packed and dimly lit pubs, as well as a number of stalls selling different grilled meats. It's worth seeing it come alive in the evening as well, but be warned, it can get very crowded, customers reporting being overcharged, and the strong smell of burning coal and cigarettes will linger in the alleyways. Instead, I recommend checking out Golden Gai. It's another throwback to Tokyo's past, and this area has evolved into a haven for artists, writers, and musicians. There's an impressive concentration of tiny cocktail bars, each with its own unique theme, and most can only accommodate a handful of patrons at a time. I recommend going in, making friends with the locals, and see where the night takes you. Shinjuku as a whole is just a fun place to explore, even if some people might see it as over the top or even sketchy. It's always a lively atmosphere, and it's hard to miss one of the main characters that lives here. I'm referring to Godzilla, whose head sits atop a rooftop in the main street and has a ton of memorabilia you can scout for in most of the shops. I was in Tokyo in December when the new Japanese-made Godzilla film called Godzilla Minus One was premiering at the Toho Cinema. It was a great opportunity to see the King of Monsters on the big screen, especially the new Max 4D experience. Shinjuku Station is a massive maze of interlinking tunnels and levels, but if you somehow make it out to the west exit, that's where the main tech stores and restaurants are. It's much more quieter than the other side, and there are a couple shops worth looking into, as well as a bunch of claw machines. I never had any luck to win a single stuffed animal. Wrapping up some memorable times around Shinjuku. Oh, all right, guys. Cheers, everybody. Oh, come by. Whoa. I took a 10-minute train ride south to the busy, fast-paced, half-brother district of Shibuya. The main eye-catcher here is the Shibuya Crossing, or Scramble. A major intersection where people cross from all directions. It's a pretty surreal experience the first time I had to cross. It's not the busiest I've been in, but I do appreciate the controlled chaos that goes on here. There's a rooftop called Mags that's relatively new and overlooks the crossing from above. You pay 1,500 yen for entry and a drink is included. I think it's cool to come around lunchtime to hang out and watch the world move below. Fun for a while, but in the end, it's just a crossing. I wanted to get a bird's eye view of Tokyo. I bummed around and looked for an elevator that could take me up to the rooftop of one of the tallest buildings nearby. Experience ascending to the rooftop is definitely unique and builds up anticipation, I won't lie. As you reach the final escalator, you're treated to the sprawling metropolis of Tokyo as far as the eye can see. The views are mostly unobstructed, and you really get a sense of the ever-evolving cityscape of Tokyo all around you. I've been to many observation decks in the past, but this one hit different. You really feel like you're being suspended freely over a diverse city of 40 million people. On clear days, Mount Fuji can be seen towering far out in the distance, and there are designated spots for professional photography. It was a little cloudy when I went, but I prefer that over a completely sunny day. Overall, I recommend booking this experience ahead of time to see Tokyo from a different perspective. There's a vintage cafe available on the same floor for refreshments, as well as some sort of ball pit, but it's primarily used for photo shoots. Shibuya's entertainment district is okay. I just didn't really find a lot to do in the area, besides paying a visit to the beloved statue of Hachiko the Akita. Celebrating his 100th birthday, this statue was commemorated to celebrate the loyalty, patience, and undying love for his owner during the early 20th century in Japan. I'll move on to the district of Asakusa, a historic and vibrant ward of Tokyo that offers a bustling shopping avenue filled with traditional Japanese shops. This is where the big Sensoji Temple is also located, celebrating a number of festivals and ceremonies throughout the year. It gets quite busy here in the daytime, so people post up near the massive red lantern that symbolizes prosperity and good fortune. I stayed here for most of the day, and as evening came, I biked over to the nearby Tokyo Skytree. Rising to a height of 634 meters, this is one of the tallest structures in the city and is pretty iconic in Tokyo's skyline. It looks amazing at night too, with revolving lights and reflective shadows. I unfortunately dropped the ball in securing a ticket to go up to the observation deck, but overall, I think it's best to be admired from up close in the evening hours. The other tower, located across town, is the Tokyo Tower, rising to around 333 meters. Resembling the Eiffel Tower by design, it's a beautifully constructed freestanding tower draped with the iconic orange and white color scheme. Again, it's one of those marvels of Tokyo that I mostly enjoy seeing up close rather than from above, so I didn't go up this tower either. I was surprised by the cafeteria inside though, where a lot of mostly international meals can be purchased. The Tokyo Tower is also illuminated every night, making for some spectacular photos. The final district I want to cover is Akihabara. This is a fun, playful part of Tokyo that is the epicenter of Japanese otaku culture, which covers anime, manga, video games, and electronics. Just coming out of the train station, I immediately felt transported into some sort of gaming paradise. It's got a lively atmosphere with floors and floors of Japanese pop culture, cosplay scenarios, and innovative technology. There are plenty of maid cafes as well, if you're into it. It's fun to get lost around here, because I started to feel like a kid running around a toy store. It's the innocent, childlike wonder that lives and breathes here that sets the stage for exploring as much as possible. Everything lights up even more in the evening, and I took a walk inside one of the bigger stores here to take a closer look at the merchandise. Each floor is organized to a different theme and various characters from different universes. It's especially fun to walk around and see how many characters you can recognize from your own childhood and get introduced to others you never knew existed. There are a ton of throwbacks, rare collectibles, that I got completely immersed in exploring every inch of these specialty stores. Everything has its own little place, and the amount of things I found here that I probably won't be able to find back home is staggering. It's cool getting acquainted with the Japanese cast of characters as well, some bordering on the bizarre, but that's what makes them stand out. There are stores that supply parts for building realistic dolls, K-pop memorabilia, and some interesting gravity-defying character models.
Okay, so we reached the American section here on floor number 8, where we have all the guns that are readily available for purchase.
I was a little shocked when I first saw a wall of assault rifles, since this is Japan, but they ended up being replicas for airsoft battles. There's all sorts of military builds, keepsakes, and other random things that I wanted to buy so bad, and it really takes some resilience to stay within budget. So many different card games are also here, and overall, I feel like there's something for everyone that can bring them back to their childhood days. Akihabara is definitely different and unique in its own way, and I also explored the nearby street that sells all things cooking related. It's a good opportunity to buy various kinds of hibachi blades as well, that are highly regarded as the best in Japanese engineering. I also recommend the nearby market close to Ueno, that not only sells reasonably priced products, but is something to explore for both locals and tourists. There are some more wacky items to buy, small shops to explore, and just taking a day to sample some delicious food items at discount prices. There are lots of local vendors, including ones that sell the popular social snack called takoyaki. They're basically grilled batter balls filled with octopus. You season them with onion flakes, some soy-based sauce, furikake, and enjoy. So this wraps up some of my time in Tokyo. I left out some footage for another time, including some hidden gems, so stay tuned. For my next video, I'll go over some day trips from Tokyo, including Yokohama, Enoshima, and Nikko. These places have elevated my time in Japan even more, and I can't wait to share them. If you like this video on Tokyo, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me for more content around Japan and beyond. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. As dynamic and fast-paced as it can get, Tokyo can sometimes seem overwhelming and confining in a lot of ways. For this video, I want to highlight a small getaway destination to pull you away from the nonstop rhythm of the city and into a more relaxed and rejuvenating state of mind. To get there, head to Tokyo Station and hop aboard the train heading to Utsunomiya. There should be a direct line leading to Nikko from there, and the entire duration of the trip should be just under 2 hours. Nikko is a small city located in the Tochigi foothills. It feels more like a small neighborhood with its single-lane road lined with different Japanese craft shops. It's simple to walk around and catch some artisans doing their thing and creating different items. Among all, the main recognizable point of interest that people associate with Nikko is this bridge. It's got a nice balance of color, but you need to pay in order to cross it, and it's kind of underwhelming. I suggest continuing past this bridge and towards an old abyss along the banks of the river. It's a great little walk, and what's interesting is also seeing these old stone statues with red bibs and hats. These are called Hizo statues, and there are around 70 of them here. They're often revered as symbols of protection and compassion in Japanese culture and line most of the trek throughout this abyss. The other half of Nikko lies to the west, with a large blue volcanic lake and surrounding mountaintops. There's no train service there, so it's best to buy a bus ticket for 2,300 yen, that covers unlimited bus rides to and from the main town over a duration of 2 days. It's a good deal, and I suggest getting these early in the morning near the main station. The journey is along a one-way road that takes about 45 minutes in total and also has a ton of switchbacks. It's a comfortable ride for the most part, but they do warn about motion sickness, especially if you are standing. A fun ride, and hats off to the drivers for navigating all the turns. When you get dropped off, this part of Nikko feels so much more open to explore on foot. The lake covers pretty much the entirety of this region, and I saw several operators for different kinds of water sports and even tours around the perimeter. Nearby, there's a nice Shinto shrine that overlooks the lake as well, with all the curated details I've come to expect. Nikko is one of the first places that shows off the bright colors of early fall in Japan. Everything just ignites as the season sets in, with plenty of crunchy leaves to step on as well. I think the biggest draw here is Kegon Falls, one of Japan's highest waterfalls at around a height of 97 meters. There's a free viewing platform for this attraction, but I do suggest taking an elevator down to the base for an even better experience. The cost is 570 yen per person, and it's a typical commercial elevator that casually descends down 100 meters to the platform. I do think that this is the better option to appreciate the magnitude of this waterfall, as well as the fall colors that are on full display. It's really captivating to look at and appreciate the beauty of nature even more across all of Japan. I should also mention the cable car ropeway system that is in Nikko. It's the second to last stop on the bus before you reach the lake, and for 1,000 yen per person, takes you on a suspended ride to a mountaintop overlooking the entire valley of Nikko. It's impressive to say the least, as you get kind of a bird's eye view of everything in one shot. It's perfect for landscape photographers and an iconic snapshot of Nikko, Japan. I ended up walking further than I anticipated, with no plan whatsoever, and eventually came to a place where I saw a lot of abandoned homes and cabins with no one around. It's a big issue here in Japan, unfortunately, and as much as I love urban exploring, it's truly eye-opening to see how urbanization and economic shifts have played a role in these rural areas. I'm sure the pandemic did not help, and there's also a certain level of superstition to some of these abandoned areas that play a role in neglecting the upkeep. I'm curious as to how it'll all play out in the future, as it's estimated there are roughly 8.5 million abandoned homes sitting empty in Japan. All in all, Nikko is a cool place to discover close to Tokyo. The gorgeous landscapes, onsens, waterfalls, and shrines make it a desirable destination for small motorists and cyclists. The single-lane roads do tend to get congested, especially during the weekends, but it's hard to resist a reset in the mountains. Nikko has that small town charm and is a great getaway for the fast-paced life of Tokyo. And you just can't beat those colors. So that was Nikko, Japan. In my next video, I travel north to the Yamagata Highlands, as well as explore the incredible feudal town of Kakunodate, known for its preservation of the samurai culture. Thanks for watching, and please be sure to check out some of my other videos of my travels throughout the vast country of Japan. Please like and subscribe for more future content. I'll see you next time. Ever since I was young, I've always been fascinated by Japanese samurai culture and Bushido code. Their mix of self-discipline, swordsmanship, and loyalty drew me in right from the beginning. I wanted to find more of that during my time in Japan, so I took a bullet train heading north from Tokyo to a tiny samurai stronghold village of Kakunodate. The journey is a long one, with a few stops along the way to make transfers. The one stop I made before arriving to Kakunodate was at Yamadera Temple, near the city of Yamagata. It's essentially a Buddhist temple that's been built into and on top of a mountain. It's well over 1,000 years old, where you must conquer 1,015 stone steps to reach the summit.
Hey, buddy.
The climb can seem a little strenuous, but walking through a cedar forest on the way up can take your mind off the hassle. It's filled with little details along the way, and as I made my way closer and closer to the end, I began to see how everything integrates naturally into the mountain itself. There's no artificial architecture here, and one of the most iconic spots is this hall that's perched on the cliffside overlooking the valley. It's amazing to see it when the sun hits it just right and can make for some truly amazing photos. My favorite part wasn't actually the summit itself, but the small wooden overlook that opens up to the entire valley below. A great place to catch your breath and take in the natural beauty of the Japanese countryside. The final steps at the top is where most people stop and pray. It's pretty rewarding to have this general feeling of accomplishment and enlightenment. There's no need to rush to the top. Yamadera is a place where the phrase about it being the journey, not the destination, really applies. This was a great cardio workout, and seeing familiar Hizo characters made me smile and appreciate the care and dedication that went into this temple. I recommend coming here if you're traveling in the area, as it's a great spot to add to your Japan itinerary. I hopped back on my bullet train, which I now refer to as the Lady in Red, and continued my journey onwards to Kakunodate. My calves were still burning from the hike, and let me just say that the small convenience store sushi pack never tasted so good on my ride heading west. It's about a 2-hour journey to the Akita Prefecture and the samurai stronghold of Kakunodate. After arriving to this historic feudal town, I did a quick ride through the preserved Samurai District, also known as Buke Yashiki. This district features rows of traditional samurai residences on each side, some of which date back to the 1600s.
Made it to Kakunodate, literally a small town in the mountains. I found my little sleeping space here. I think the owner's away for the time being, but I'm gonna get comfortable.
To really get a sense of how the samurai families lived, it's important to read up on each family's history in the region. There is a map you can get at the train station that gives a little backstory on each home. And while some can be free of charge, most charge around 500 yen for entry. I chose the Aoyagi home since it was the largest estate. There are beautiful gardens, study rooms with classic kanji manuscripts, and of course, an impressive armory where you can hold various weaponry, including the iconic katana. There are so many different kinds of katanas on display, as well as the traditional armor that samurais wore in battle. There's even a separate room where you can try on some metal cast samurai helmets, which were surprisingly heavy, but for all the right reasons. Something I didn't know before was how much the samurais loved collecting Western items. There are so many different varieties of vintage cameras, film cartridges, vinyl records, and just about every variation of gramophones I've ever seen. They were true connoisseurs of their time.
Suddenly my katana, my little mini katana, is pretty useless here. So I have these swords here, just gargantuan. Really cool to just walk around and get a little slice of history and be able to see some of the scripts and armors and some of the artwork too.
I definitely recommend checking out Kakunodate if you are ever in the Akita prefecture. It's definitely a more authentic and less crowded experience than you would get at the more well-known cities, and to see the samurai culture in its true form is something that you just can't get in many other places. In my next video, I travel further north in Japan and hop to the island of Hokkaido. This is such a wild, rugged, and downright unique place I've been to in Japan. A seafood lover's paradise, and one I can't wait to share. As always, thank you for watching, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time. Hokkaido is Japan's northernmost island that's far more rural with mountainous terrain and dramatic coastlines. The Japan Rail can reach the island through an underwater tunnel and ultimately end at the city of Hakodate for regional rail transfers. This was a pretty long journey for me as I navigated the train system and looked out upon the diverse landscape of Hokkaido. The trains do tend to sway more here than, say, the rest of Japan, but I got used to it pretty quick and still enjoyed the whole train riding experience. My first stop in Hokkaido was Noboribetsu, a city renowned for its geothermal hot springs. Right off the train stop, there's a small kiosk to buy a bus ticket, which takes you directly north to the center of town, where the majority of onsens are. I was actually surprised at how developed this small city was. There's quite a bit of luxury hotels here, with several steam vent openings scattered about. The big spectacle here, just beyond the hotels, is the ominous named Hell Valley. It's basically a volcanic landscape featuring bubbling hot springs, steaming vents, along with rocky terrain stained with vibrant hues of orange and white. It got its name from its resemblance to Buddhist depictions of hell, with sulfuric scents and volcanic activity. It was rather short-lived, so I decided to explore the area further, hitting up several diverging trails going through the forest. There's a massive caldera lake that's nearby, which actually reminded me of Crater Lake back home in the States. On the opposite end is an area for natural pools and hot springs, which you obviously shouldn't go into. But as I walked along the perimeter, there's actually an area where the water runs along a causeway through several forested areas towards a makeshift platform where people can take off their shoes and soak their feet. I expected the water to be scalding hot, but it's actually very manageable and a great way to soothe after a long hike. After Noboribetsu, I stocked up on some snacks. Recommend trying this Japanese chocolate called Black Thunder. It's truly life-changing. As well as trying a sushi called uni, which is basically sea urchin and has a very distinctive taste and texture. I then boarded my train to continue my journey. My first pit stop was in Chitose, and here is where I got an up-close look at the salmon migration that happens every autumn on the river. It's jaw-dropping to see how much salmon is in these waters, and the staggering amount of caviar production, sashimi, and other seafood delicacies is impressive. For a seafood lover like myself, this was basically a gold mine for all things fish. I carried on further northwest, bypassing the main city of Sapporo till later, and came upon a small port town of Otaru. It's growing as a popular day trip destination as of late, and the whole town can be explored pretty easily. My stay was at the Otaru taproom, which doubles as a hostel and bar. It's a nice, relaxing place to stay, and you get a free beer as a thank you on top of it. One of the most beautiful sights in Otaru is its merchant warehouse district along a canal. It's a charming little spot with nicely preserved buildings that have been converted to cafes and restaurants. It's well worth it to walk and explore along the banks of the canal. I also noticed how much overgrowth Otaru has. From street lamps to buildings, it seems to be just about everywhere. It really gives the city character and a sense of identity. I only had about a day to explore the majority of Otaru, and the more I walked through some of its old alleys and classic izakayas, the more the city began to grow on me with its historical appeal. It's not really flashy and doesn't need to be. I liked how curated everything here is, with a lot of tiny shops, seafood stalls, and general stores. And you just can't beat those overgrown walls around town. The next day, I made my way back to explore the bustling city of Sapporo. Sapporo is the largest city in Hokkaido and the 5th largest city in Japan overall by population. Its urban layout was designed with American influence, featuring a grid system of wide, tree-lined boulevards and making it mostly easy to navigate. It's got a nickname as the City of Entertainment, with a good blend of urban sophistication and entertainment districts. Seafood, once again, reigns supreme. You really can't go wrong with any establishment here, and the Japanese standards for serving clean, delicious cuisine really shines here as well. There's a ton of bars all throughout the city, with the majority of them sharing one large building. I mainly sought out places with live music, and can't say I was disappointed. I arrived in Sapporo just before Halloween and was stoked to see the local people embracing this popular holiday in the streets. There were the classic Nintendo characters out and about, along with a few cast of characters from Japanese lore that I unfortunately didn't get a chance to film. I got to know the city pretty well right from the start, and can only imagine how it looks for its winter festivals. Since it was still fall in the city, I again took the opportunity to wander the main park and enjoy the changing of the color guard. It was everything I wanted and more, especially since this was the first fall colors I experienced in 3 years. Sapporo also hosted the 1972 Winter Olympics, and the iconic rings can be found near the main park as well. I'd love to come back to the city again, hopefully in the wintertime, to really experience the local life, sample more traditional seafood dishes, and of course, bring my gear to ski the iconic powder just beyond the city limits. So this wraps up some of my time spent on the island of Hokkaido. In my next video, I take a plane to travel to beautiful Okinawa. It's an archipelago filled with gorgeous outlying islands, interesting cuisine, surfing culture, and abundant marine life. I'll close out with a brief stop in Enoshima and Kamakura Peninsula. As always, if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more travels as I close out Japan. See you next time. Following my trip to Hokkaido, I hopped on a jet to fly from mainland Japan to the island archipelago in the southwest known as Okinawa. Right after takeoff, you can really get a sense of the immense scale of Tokyo, as well as get a breathtaking view of Mount Fuji in the distance. The total flight time is around 2 hours and 45 minutes. The main island is surprisingly big from the air, and as we touched down, I followed most of the crowd out of the airport to the main monorail system that connects to most of downtown Naha, the capital of Okinawa. It's a great build from the last 20 years, but has its limitations on distance. A pretty easy way to get around, but you would probably need to rent a car if you want to explore all of Okinawa. I picked up a simple hostel for several nights, close to the center of Naha. Standard bunk beds, lockers, and semi-private showers were all there. Naha was rebuilt following the invasion during World War II so a lot of the buildings might look mostly generic, but the infrastructure is still going strong.
Amazing monorail system here. Still some of the best. Trash collection. Less music over.
There's some interesting shops and restaurants to check out in the area.
I'm gonna take a look inside, see what they got.
Some with their own take on decor, as well as food options. I mostly scouted for homemade Okinawan cuisine, with this restaurant being my absolute go-to for 4 days straight. Everything is made from scratch, the price is right, and the flavor is just off the charts. Speaking of prices, I expected everything to be twice as much compared to mainland Japan, but no, most food options were on par or even less than what I found while traveling throughout Japan. I had no problem just walking the streets to find good food and everything in between. The main street in Naha is Kokusai Dori, which seems to attract all visitors and locals alike. It's a pretty long street with some interesting shops that sell souvenirs, some of which I immediately recognized. Quite a surreal experience, seeing all different waves of nostalgia wash over you, with a strong influence from American pop culture and Japanese anime. I could have spent hours just scouring each shop, hoping my own childhood in the mix. There's nothing too over the top, but I did find these frog-shaped bags that caught my eye. At first I thought they were just some incredibly detailed zip pouches, only to be told that they are in fact real frogs that were repurposed as a small purse. Pretty wild. As expected, there is quite a bit of Air Force and Army surplus stores scattered all around Okinawa. This all dates back to the Battle of Okinawa during World War II, when the island was invaded by US forces. Fast forward to present day, after Reconstruction, to find several US military bases built on the island.
Big thing about here in Okinawa, live music bars. Look at all this, 4 of them.
And these musicians were definitely a surprise hit to watch.
You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.
Afterwards, I recommend going off the tourist path and finding a locals alley to taste some authentic Okinawan dishes. They're slightly different than traditional Japanese food, with locally grown vegetables and seasonings. I obviously wanted to get on the water and wasn't too impressed by some of the local beaches, even though they are exceptionally clean. There's several beachside food trucks to try out as well, with the same Okinawan kick to old favorites. My goal was to head out to the Karema Islands, which lie just to the west of Naha, and the only way to get there is by either a high-speed catamaran or a passenger ferry, which departs from the main terminal.
Okay, so here's the thing that I'm still learning. There's the ferry to Zamani, this big giant ferry. It only runs once and it's slow. And this is where I was. I went to the terminal and everything's in, is in Japanese and all these different languages. So you gotta find yourself, where I'm going is gonna get the high-speed boat, Zamami Island, Aka Island. It's called Queen Zamami. And luckily I saw it from across the way and I'm like, that looks more like a high-speed catamaran. It's a little bit more north from kind of like the main terminal area over there. So this is the boat you want to be looking for, the Queen Zamami. It's a high-speed cat. I'm guessing this is where you get the tickets.
And while the website to book tickets is a little outdated, I found it's the only way to book the cat. The boat is very well put together and offers some nice views on the way to Zamami Island. The island is relatively small, with a handful of residents calling it home. The water is incredibly clear, and I couldn't wait to do some snorkeling in this slice of paradise. It was awesome getting back into the water after a cold stint in Hokkaido, and the marine life thrives pretty good here as well.
No.
Yeah, so unfortunately, my camera finally called it quits and decided to flood and short circuit during most of my dive. I was able to salvage a bit of diving footage, however, with a swim among a school of batfish. For now, just enjoy some of the aerial shots I was able to get along the coast of the island with some of the most incredible turquoise blue water I've seen in a while. Overall, Okinawa was a refreshing change of pace from the fast-paced rhythm of Japan and a fantastic getaway to warmer climates in late November. Highly recommend paying it a visit if you have the time and are looking for something a little different. My next and final video from Japan will be on the small island of Enoshima in the Kamakura Peninsula. I'll show a bit of Yokohama as well, with a wrap-up and final thoughts on traveling to and around Japan as a whole, and what the future might hold for this unique nation. As always, thank you for watching, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time. Following Okinawa, I returned to Tokyo to just casually explore the city for a few more days. After exploring Roppongi, one of the spots I was recommended to visit was Bauhaus, a Japanese live music venue where a collection of musicians cover Western songs. It's pretty amazing to hear how music in general can transcend language barriers and really bring the whole place together. Another spot I recommend is Ninja Bar, which was an unexpected surprise hidden in an old subway station. You have to kind of search for it in Asakusa, so I won't spoil it, but the vibe and theme is all there.
Sake, boom, boom, sake, boom, boom.
It's a good.
Japan is kind of known for its hedgehog cafes, so I gave it a chance when I was visiting Harajuku. The prices are based on time spent with the hedgehogs, and you get a complimentary drink with your order. Then you get a tub of hedgehogs and some feed to just do whatever. They're mostly shy and just want their rest, so I mostly just left them alone for the most part. This one was actually really chill and enjoyed getting picked up, so we instantly became soulmates. A separate driverless train line from Ginza took me south and across the Rainbow Bridge into an interesting part of Tokyo called Kodo City. This is a pretty interesting sub-district with a miniature replica of the Statue of Liberty and home to one of the most beloved anime franchises in Japanese pop culture. The Gundam Factory is basically a hub for fans to experience the world of Gundam up close and personal. Inside, there are some pretty extraordinary showcases of custom Gundam builds and merchandise related to model building and robotics. The attention to detail is really impressive, and even though I'm not up to speed on what each faction of robots represents, I was pretty blown away at how much time and effort went into creating these fantasy robots. It's almost an endless array of art, and there are even award shows for their achievements. Definitely recommend stopping by and seeing this firsthand to appreciate all things pop culture and science fiction. Before heading to Enoshima, I stopped at the port city of Yokohama. Surprisingly, it's the second largest city in Japan by population, with some pretty high buildings, street markets and arcades, waterfront districts, vintage warehouse quarters, and of course, the Nissan headquarters. I got to see some of my favorite models on full display, and even got the opportunity to sit inside the slick GTR Skyline. Yokohama felt smaller than I initially expected it to be, but it has some charming waterfront areas, interesting shopping districts, and just from my own perspective, a slower, more relaxed pace of life compared to Tokyo. It's got a museum for the fan favorite cup of noodles, and a secondary Gundam base just off the port side, complete with a moving robot. I skipped going inside since I just visited one, and it's unfortunate that this one had to close down after so many years of entertaining the fans. I bought my ticket to Enoshima the next day, and this was the second time I got to ride on these amazing inverted monorail lines. Definitely something I've come to admire a lot in Japan. Enoshima is a small coastal town at the mouth of Sagami Bay. And the first thing I noticed is how much they compare themselves to Hawaii. I guess I can somewhat agree, since it does have a pretty big surfing culture, food, and this shrine, which sits on a small island just off the coast. You can walk there by a connecting bridge, enjoy the sights and sounds of the ocean, and oftentimes can spout Mount Fuji off in the distance. Walking in transported me back in time, with little shops scattered at the forefront, and a few places to get a bite to eat, and some off-the-wall desserts. The shrine is beautiful and peaceful in a lot of ways, and definitely takes some time to get up to after a series of stairs. It's everything I've come to expect from the meticulous attention to detail, and just the overall series of paths you can take to explore all the different parts of the island shrine. There are really nice places to just have a seat and enjoy both the tranquility and peacefulness of the place. Something I didn't know I needed from all the time I've spent moving from place to place. meditation is everything. The sunsets here are really gorgeous too, but the only thing that kind of spoiled it were these birds. If you're having a peaceful lunch near the water, they will swoop down without mercy and steal your food. I fell victim to this more than once, and now have a legit phobia of these giant hawks. But whatever, still a memorable and peaceful place I can definitely recommend visiting as either a day trip from Tokyo or a full retreat altogether. So this finally wraps up my entire trip throughout Japan. It's been a dream destination for me for a long time, and I can honestly say it delivers in a lot of ways for the common traveler. The hospitality, kindness of the people, transportation, and local food options are absolutely unparalleled. This is a trip I often think about and can't help but talk about many months after coming back to my own country. The innovation, natural scenery, cleanliness, and above all, the respect of the people is something I won't forget. It's not without its faults, but they are so minimal that I rarely paid any attention to them. I got to experience many different cities and people along the way, and hope to come back again to see more of the southern half of the country. Till then, arigatou gozaimasu, Japan, and I look forward to the day we all embrace your amazing toilets of the future. See you next time.